Alright, scientists, here we go. So today we're going to start our water for living topic, and essentially we want to look at these two aspects. We want to look at how much water is in different things. That's pretty quick. We want to look at what water is as well, and we want to describe water, the importance of water as a solvent in these three objects right here. So let's get going. Those are just dot points. So what's the point? By the end, you should be able to define these terms: solvent, solution, solute. You should also be able to describe the role of water in cells, bloodstream, and transpiration, and you want to be able to recall a table of the relative amounts of water. Things you need to remember from previous study. One, a mixture is a combination of different things in which the component elements are actually different, like they're distinct from each other, they're not joined together. A homogeneous solution or mixture is one that has uniform composition throughout. So this, a good example is air, which is a gas. A heterogeneous mixture is a mixture which doesn't have a uniform composition throughout. For example, smoke. Smoke is different at different parts of a smoke cloud, and that's because it's a mixture of gases and solids. All right. So here we're going to look at water in the stuff and the earth. So basically, 66% of the Earth's surface is covered in water, and it's about the same in us. But let's have a look at that. So here's all the water on Earth, right? Saline means salty, so 97% of the water on Earth is salty. And if we look at just that 3%, the 3% of water which is there for us that's fresh, that we can drink, 70% of it, or thereabouts, is in ice caps. Then you've got groundwater at about 0.3%. 0.3% of that 3% is available to us to drink as surface water. 87% of that's in lakes, 2% of that is in rivers, and we can drink from those, but 11% of that 0.3% from the 3 is still in swamps, and that's not available to us. So there's a very, very small amount of the water on Earth is actually available to us. All right, but here's a rough table. Okay, so in a human, we're roughly 66%. A potato, 77. Jellyfish is mostly water. Tomato is mostly water. You can tell this because it's juicier. Apple, a bit more structure to it. It's about 84%. Chicken, again, the same as us. Most meats should be roughly about the same in water. Lettuce is mostly water. Milk is mostly water. It's 87%. And a fish is 77%. Now remember, it lives in the water. It's easy for it to find water. It doesn't have to struggle to save water inside its body. So what is it? Essentially, water is a molecule, so they're bound together. You can see that they're joined here at the electrons, and it's one oxygen atom, two hydrogen atoms. Now, it is an electrically charged molecule, which means it's polar. So it has a negative end up here at the oxygen, and it has positive ends. Okay, so you've got positive ends and negative ends. Now, because we know opposites attract, what this means is, so it's differently charged poles, that it will form these little bonds here. Now, these are not chemical bonds. They're actually, you can break them fairly easily. But that's why water allows stuff to sit on top of it, because on the top of it, it's got this surface tension, which we'll talk more about later on. This is a bit of an extra thing. It's got this surface tension caused because of the hydrogen bonding. And that's how you really light things are able to float along the water. Now, what is a solution? Very simple. A solution is a liquid mixture in which the minor component, the solute, is uniformly distributed with the major component, the solvent. So in this case, the major component is the solvent, and that is water, and the minor component, so the one that there's less of, is the sugar, and that's the solute. So the solute dissolves into the water, and that gives us this wonderful clear solution here, and that's just sugar in water. It's homogeneous, and the solute needs to be soluble, so it will dissolve in the solvent. Now, sugar dissolves quite well in water, but it won't dissolve very well in oil. Oil will not dissolve in water. So if it's not soluble, it will not go into solution. Now, here's a rough one. You can see the solvent we draw like this, and the solute we'll draw as little tiny particles floating around. Now, water is known as the universal solvent. So now we're going to look at how water dissolves things. So we put in pure water, and we drop in some dye, and you can see that it starts to spread, and eventually it will disperse evenly throughout. So it's known as a universal solvent because it dissolves the most things, essentially. And it does this because of its polarity, its electrical charges, which we'll have a look at here. So when the salt gets in, salt breaks apart into a positive ion and a negative ion. Cool. And you can see that the positive ends gather around, this one will show it better. The positive ends gather around the negative ion, and they form a little barrier. The negative ends gather around the positive ion, and they form a little barrier. And that's how something dissolves. All right. So water as a solvent is really important. In the bloodstream and cells, basically, the reason we rely on water so much is because it's able to dissolve nearly everything we need. It's the medium that we transport stuff around in our body for the blood, and it makes up the bulk of our cells. So if we look inside a cell, this cytoplasm, that's a watery medium. Okay, so that's mostly water. Transpiration with trees is again, it's using water to move stuff. So they take water in through the root hairs, okay? Transpiration pulls the water up the xylem, okay? So it only goes one way, it goes to the leaves. Now, once the water gets to the leaves, it's used for photosynthesis, okay? Some will evaporate out, some will be used in the leaves. The stuff that's used to make food, it then goes down what we call the phloem, which is also in the stem of the tree, and that's how it takes food down. But even then, you can see that the food is still dissolved in water. So it's really important that you understand water is used in living things because it dissolves them. This is a stomata, and that's what the water evaporates out of. That's it. That was a long one. Hope you hung in there. See you in class.